Gen Z women are reporting record levels of depression and anxiety, and somehow liberal women are falling first. And I remember back in the day, you guys, I would be pro-feminism. I would be like, let's go women, movement power, girl power, you got this, freedom, whatever. And nowadays, I'm like, I don't know anymore, because the more I listen, the more I see what feminism and feminists represent, I feel like I am against it. And does that make me against feminism or anti-feminist? I don't know, you guys, because I'm not against liberation, freedom of speech, rights. I'm not against these things, equality. But like, it definitely doesn't feel and seem like feminism today is what it's supposed to be or supposed to be representing, if you know what I mean. So let's go and check out how feminism accidentally created a mental health crisis.
Feminism promised women freedom and happiness. But today, 66% of Gen Z women describe their mental health as poor or terrible, and the majority of teen girls are in therapy. What went wrong?
Imagine being teen and think that something is wrong with you and you need to talk to a professional about it. Like, even just the idea of going to therapy, spending your time, someone else's money, your parents' money as well, into going to therapy and talking about your problems as if like something is wrong with you, when it's actually you being a teenager, figuring out life, making mistakes, learning from them.
1960s feminism had one central complaint: being a woman sucked. Betty Friedan lamented our comfortable concentration camps. Janis Joplin gave us Women is Losers. And the Red Stocking Revolutionaries' manifesto, Feminist Revolution, raged against all past ideology, literature, and philosophy, products as they are, of male supremacist culture. They even suggested women needed to develop a new language to describe female victimization. Well, we're still speaking English and watching Jane Austen adaptations. And we're still repeating.
Hell yeah. I literally spend my time watching Bridgerton. And in Bridgerton, there is so much representation and it is completely different and kind of fictional, but they are using the period drama kind of thing. So I still enjoy it. I do not understand why are people so critical and against these things. Like, if you see a woman who in a way seems or sounds suppressed, you're like, I don't believe in that. That's not true love. That's not women right. She's not doing that because she loves her man. She's doing it because she has to.
Feminist mantra: it's impossible to be a woman. That feeling was re-upped recently by Gloria in Greta Gerwig's Barbie. On the surface, the legacy of feminism is Barbie world, the world of girl power. Women dominate higher ed, lower ed, political parties, law, and medicine. But when we, like Barbie herself, leave Barbie world and enter the real world, we find post-apocalyptic hellscapes, shocking rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide among the very women and teens most receptive to that feminist foremothers mantra. It is literally impossible to be a woman.
It is literally impossible to be a woman.
That's the infamous line from America Ferrera's Gloria.
I guess it is more impossible to be the definition of woman and what people define as a woman, especially liberal women define as women nowadays.
At a key moment in the film, she sits Barbie down for a little real-world therapy session. Gloria informs a tearful, awakening Barbie that the system is rigged against all uterus havers. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us. Gloria personifies a sinister, profoundly seductive therapy culture masquerading as consciousness raising. And Gloria's message? The system is rigged. America Ferrera later told the New York Times, "We can know things and still need to hear them out loud. It can still be cathartic. There are a lot of people who need Feminism 101, whole generations of girls who are just coming up and who don't have the words for the culture they're being raised in." America's analysis of the culture we're raised.
I mean, isn't like questions to be answered? Isn't like Dora the Explorer going to explore the world and learn about it? Feminism 101, is it really necessary? Do we really need to like explain things? And by the way, every time you learn something, you learn it from one perspective, from one person. So you always have to question it. You always have to bring more resources and keep going around and finding all the corners just to find your own truth and your own answer. So I don't think this should be educated, like per se in a school or something. God forbid.
Our girls in, the system is rigged. I'm not here to diminish the difficulties facing young girls, but I am here to say that Feminism 101 misses the boat. And the consequences for young girls, especially liberal young girls, are demonstrably deadly. They're not being raised in a man's world. They're being raised in a therapy culture that rehearses wrongs and licks wounds. Our girls are being trained in the mental habits of depressed, anxious people. Misery loves company, and among
Misery loves company. There is nothing greater than that. Like that, the sentence that explains TikTok nowadays, and all these women who constantly go out there and talk so negative about everything they are experiencing, and then having all these comments of people being with them, figuring out things, helping them out, supporting them, instead of actually being bland and telling them truthfully what is wrong, and even if it is something wrong with them, like being brutal, kind of. Like, people are not brutal anymore. People don't go out of their way and be mean to others just to explain something out of love. You know, back in the day, you would say, I am mean, but because I love that person. You cannot do it anymore. Mean is mean. It doesn't have shades of meanness anymore or reasons.
America's Gen Z, Gloria's misery has plenty of company. And it is past time for us to save the girls from Barbie's world. And here's how.
All right, let's go. Erica.
Now, when I say the girls are sad, how sad are we talking? Fewer than half of Gen Zers describe their mental health as good. 39% of Gen Z Americans report going to therapy weekly, with 42% of them receiving a psychiatric disorder diagnosis.
That's crazy.
But it turns out that the mental health crisis is gendered. While 56% of Gen Z men describe their mental health as good, only 34% of women do. And when you drill down...
You know why I think that's the case? I feel like it's because when it comes to men, they are kind of raised to be like, we are fine, we are right, we don't talk about emotions, because if we do, we are pussies, whatever, you know. And I feel like that is really implemented in them, and they say they are fine even if they don't feel fine. But also I feel like it is because they see the world differently. Like, they are more simple in the way that they don't complicate things where they are not supposed to be complicated, and they face troubles firsthand and they deal with it at a time, while women think and overthink. You know, like, we have to have all the steps ready. We have to be mentally, physically ready to deal with something, while men are like, am I dealing with this today? They don't even question it. If the problem is in their face, they're going to be dealing with it.
It's not all women. More specifically, liberal young women are dragging down the mental health profile of an entire generation. This is not just a vibes-based claim. The data are remarkably consistent across studies and surveys. Depression, anxiety, identity confusion, and therapeutic intervention all rise faster and higher among liberal Gen Z women than any other demographic group. One of the most important studies was a 2022 report titled The Politics of Depression. Using the Monitoring the Future dataset, the only major U.S. survey that asks high school seniors to self-identify as liberal or conservative, researchers tracked depressive symptoms going back decades. Before 2012, there were no significant sex differences. Liberal and conservative teens looked roughly the same. But then something changed. Starting around 2012, depression among liberal girls spiked sharply, rising faster and higher than liberal boys, or conservative girls.
So male liberals are even more in problem, or think that they are problematic and need therapy, or more in a mental health crisis, than conservative feminists. Female, I mean. All right, that's interesting.
Since 2010, liberal girls rose 0.73 points on a 5-point depression scale, where the standard deviation is just 0.89. That's not noise. That is a structural shift. So what happened? The authors of the original study argued that liberal girls suffered because they were alienated in a growing conservative political climate. In other words, the man's world of the 1960s had turned into the Handmaid's Tale level oppression, a claim that seems implausible given what America actually looked like after 2012.
Literally.
There's
like,
another layer to this story.
Come on, like that's such a victimhood. That's just such over exaggerating things. Maybe you did have bad experience within your own life with the males in your life, but does that are we gonna go around and generalize?
One that helps explain how these patterns moved from therapy offices and into politics, classrooms, and culture. In 2014, Jonathan Haidt accepted an invitation to lunch with Greg Lukianoff, president of FIRE, who shared with him a chilling observation. While Greg had spent his career pushing back on college administrators who were suppressing free speech, in 2013 he began to find that it was now the students themselves pushing to ban speakers, censor unsafe ideas, or drive...
How can ideas be unsafe? Like, you can listen to an idea, it's just an idea, and you can actually think about it and make your own truth. Guys, this is what is really important, and it is very critical. We don't want to live in a communist place. We don't want to live in a place where it is completely we have no freedom of speech, we have no thoughts of our own, we have only one source of information, and God forbid we have any other. You really don't want that.
Policy changes that would silence dissent. Greg, who had suffered from depression himself, also observed that in cognitive behavioral therapy, patients are taught to identify common cognitive distortions, faulty thinking patterns that both cause and worsen depression. Patterns like catastrophizing, black and white thinking, fortune-telling, emotional reasoning. CBT teaches people to notice these patterns, challenge them, and replace them with more accurate ways of thinking. But Greg observed, and Haidt agreed, that the students involved...
I do like that sign where it said no freedom for hate speech. And I do agree that that is not a place for a classroom or for any educational purpose. But believe it or not, people are going to find a way, place a corner, and have those conversations and make groups and whatnot. So I don't think you will be able to stop that from happening. I do agree it should not be a part of education, but also maybe we need to dive deeper and figure out what really is hate speech. Because any person gonna find maybe any type of speech as hate speech. If they want to, they're gonna find a way to make it sound and seem like it's a negative thing.
In protests, censorship campaigns, and ideological purity tests were using the very same distorted thought patterns, not as problems to correct, but as moral justifications. Catastrophe became proof of oppression. Black and white thinking became virtue. Emotional reasoning replaced evidence. Instead of learning, my thoughts may be lying to me, students were being taught, my emotional reaction proves the system is unjust. It's what Matt Iglesias calls the Taylor-Lorenz explanation, that the world is so broken, unjust, and frightening that Gen Z can't help but be depressed. Iglesias flips that logic. It's not reality making you depressed. Rather, depression makes reality look terrible. And
literally depressed people, they cannot find the light. They need help. They need someone to make them find the light. They find only negativity and darkness around them. And that's a really problematic thing. We need to find ways to help them. So that's what I understand. When it comes to depression, it needs therapy. It needs help.
Once depressed, rather, depression makes reality look terrible. And once entrenched, it becomes a feedback loop. Catastrophizing leads to feelings of helplessness. Helplessness leads to rage or despair. Rage gets externalized. Who did this to me? Despair turns inward. What's the point? This is why the popular therapeutic language of naming feelings and validating emotions, while sometimes helpful, can also become dangerous when severed from agency. If your internal narrative constantly tells you that your suffering proves the system is rigged, Your nervous system never stands down. And once that framework is culturally reinforced by movies, social media.
Yeah. Like that is the problem. As I said, like you have individuals who have faced really terrible things in their life and now they are deflecting and they are thinking that everything and everyone, they are generalizing. Not only that, they go onward and keep promoting that idea and those thoughts because that's what they truly believe in. It's not like, I'm not saying they are bad people. It's just that's how they are thinking and they really think that they are right 100% and whoever is questioning them is the villain.
And political rhetoric, it stops being a private mental health issue and becomes a shared worldview. Which brings us to an uncomfortable conclusion. For a growing number of young women, depression isn't just something they have. It's the lens through which they have been taught to see the world. But who's teaching them? It turns out largely their online communities.
Yeah.
According to Pew Research data, in 2009, the year that Greg's pro-censorship students would have been in 8th or 9th grade, most teenagers who had any phone owned a traditional mobile phone, while only an estimated 5 to 10% had a smartphone. In just 2 years, that number more than doubled to 23%. And by 2013, 37% of American teens carried a smartphone around, right around the time Greg started to notice the rise in student depressive-like behavior. Today, 98% of older teens report daily access to smartphones. But smartphones in themselves are just tools, right?
Tools for what?
But they seem to be tools that adolescent girls find particularly impossible to live without. And the results for mental health have been disastrous. In what might be a ray of hope, the teens themselves seem to be aware that something is deeply sick in social media culture. In one study out of Australia, adolescents overwhelmingly blame social media for their worsening mental health. Large-scale studies bear out a significant correlation between unhappiness and new media use, including social media and smartphones. In one study by Gene...
And I genuinely don't think we can do anything about it. I mean, technology, it keeps going forward and forward at a really quick rate. At a rate we don't know how to, like, once we're going to figure out one thing, another problem is going to appear and newer generations are going to find a way to use technology. So, and now you have AI too. Like, it's really problematic. It's something that we can dive on even further and figure out, is there a way that we can raise our children to not be depressed and not to think that they have a mental crisis based on social medias and the tools that they are using. You can't forbid them from using them, but then they're going to be outcast. You don't want that either, you know? You want to control them all the time? That is also bad, and it's time consuming. We need to figure out something.
Wang and W. Keith Campbell, with an N of nearly 250,000 adolescents, teens using digital media less than 1 hour daily reported, quote, substantially higher psychological well-being than those who were on their screens 5 or more hours daily. Shocking.
I don't know, as a parent, to see your child for 5 hours sitting in front of a screen. How do you not feel bad about it? Like, get the hell out of the house and do something.
Those heavy users were 48% to 171% more likely to be unhappy, to be low in well-being, or to have suicide risk factors such as depression, suicidal ideation, or past suicide attempts. And who is online the most? Girls. A 2023 Gallup poll found that girls report spending an average of 5.3 hours daily on social media.
Girls are more on social media, but I feel like boys are more playing video games digitally, you know, or watching movies or something.
With 4.4 hours for boys. And those extra hours matter a lot. Here's some personal testimony from girls who are online and have, shall we say, robust social media lives.
Because this, and this, no one sees the good clips. So, like,
right, because those aren't what go viral. So
yeah, no. But
what gets clipped is you like acting crazy, because that's what's gonna, you know, obviously.
That's what gets views. Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes you look some type of way.
Right.
So I would say the Brooklyn hate train definitely started that, like, the feeling of depressed.
This sounds to me like
Who are these girls?
everything Gloria was describing to Barbie. In the last 60 years, women haven't built on the feminist revolution. We've doubled down on lines like, quote, "We regard our feelings as our most important source of political understanding," and handed our daughters and granddaughters smartphones so they can ruminate on their pain without pause. Once an entire generation is encouraged to interpret discomfort, disagreement, or failure as trauma inflicted by external forces, resilience never has a chance to form. Therapy language, stripped of its purpose and weaponized by ideology, stops healing people and starts training them in fragility. And no one is more fragile, it seems, than the liberal girls. 56.3% of Gen Z white liberal women have been told by a healthcare provider that they have a mental health condition.
That's crazy. And also, they are the ones who seek that attention. They are going to go out there and make whatever just to hear that there is something wrong with them. And I feel like they like it. They like to have something wrong in them because they feel more relatable and they victimize themselves. And then they feel like, yes, since there is something wrong with me now, every thought that I have, every action is victimized, and I can do whatever I want and say whatever I want because there's something wrong with me. The doctor said so. Like, I don't like this. I genuinely do not think there's anything wrong with them. I think that the mental health institution or health institution, they want money, and this is one way of them to make money on women. And then making them believe that there is something wrong with them when there is nothing wrong with them.
What can we do? If we actually want to help teenage girls, especially liberal hyper-online girls, break out of the anxiety and mental health spiral we keep talking about, we have to start with something surprisingly basic: agency. Psychologists call this locus of control. It's the difference between believing I can act and shape my life and believing life happens to me. And right now, we are actively training young girls into the second category.
Yeah.
They're told their emotions are fragile. Their environment is dangerous.
Everyone's environment can be dangerous. It is completely, there is nothing, like, why do we have to fix everything? There are some things that don't need fixing. There are some things, they are like that, and we just have to live through it and figure out a way to live with it. You know what I mean?
Outcomes are determined by systems they didn't choose and can't control. Girls raised almost entirely inside educational institutions, pop culture, and screens hear the same ideological victim narratives over and over. They are conditioned to see themselves primarily as patients. Anxiety increases, passivity follows, and spirals deepen. The message is subtle but relentless. You are acted upon, and the only way out is to dominate men. See my video on the great feminization. In contrast, girls who believe they have control over their choices, who are taught to act, to solve problems, to build competence, are more resilient and less depressed. So the solution isn't more labels, more diagnoses, more therapeutic language. It's rebuilding an internal locus of control.
Yep.
And that doesn't happen primarily in lecture halls or on TikTok. It happens offline. Parents,
and they literally go to those social medias to seek those things and define themselves, because at that time you are shaping who you are, whether mentally, physically, whatever, like beliefs and whatnot. You are literally shaping it, and you are at your most vulnerable self, and you can get all this, how to explain it, you can be shaped, or yourself can be shaped by so many factors. And the easiest is to go on social media, listen to others, and get shaped by others, because that is the fastest way. Now, we need to shut that down and find maybe a bit more difficult or time-consuming way, but I think that will help us out to define our women and define our girls into becoming women who can deal with issues without having to have therapy.
Cannot just outsource formation to schools and screens anymore. So encourage girls to get outside, get off the phones, get a job, date, fail, rise, and try again. Online life should not be more exciting than their real life. So much for secular wisdom. all of which is a necessary first step to saving the girls. But it's not enough. We need not just secular psychological solutions, but a spiritual renewal. If Gloria represents the catechism our culture gives to girls now, the system is rigged, you are trapped, then history gives us a radically different option. Thomas More. He's best known for writing Utopia, serving as Lord Chancellor, and eventually losing his head to Henry VIII. But he is less remembered for one of his most radical and consequential decisions, how he educated his children. In an age when even elite girls were trained almost exclusively for marriage and court politics, More did something extraordinary.
Sent them to France.
He gave his daughters the same education as his son. He expected his daughters to be clear-eyed about the times in which they lived, and they weren't great, but to understand as well that no system or court could deprive them of their interior beauty or freedom or worth. He believed education was not about grievance, but about freedom, the freedom to choose well, to govern oneself, and to endure loss without despair. More's eldest, Margaret More Roper, became a respected scholar. She corresponded with Europe's leading intellectuals, translated Erasmus as a teenager, and was treated as a serious mind in a world that rarely treated women that way. Contrast this with the powerful women of the Tudor court, women who gained influence through spectacle, manipulation, or sexual politics. Running down the list of Henry VIII's wives, that path ended badly for nearly everyone involved.
Except the last
Freedom
one.
resides in the soul,
And the third one.
nothing can deprive you of interior freedom gained by a clear conscience. Thomas More died for that conviction. Margaret More didn't have a smartphone on hand, and no Instagram accounts have survived that I know of, but it's hard to imagine her posting a selfie screaming, "We shall overcome," live from Anne Boleyn's execution. Margaret lost her father.
But also Anne Boleyn was very educated as well. Like, one of the things about her is that she loved to read the Bible and she loved to decipher it by herself, and she was educated in France and everything. And some people say that her mind is the cause of her death because she did question a lot and she didn't want to give in really easily.
Her inheritance and her social standing. If anyone could cry victim, it was a Catholic woman in Tudor England. Yet from the documents we have, we know she remained faithful to his memory, to her faith, and to the formation he had given her. She would go on to educate her own children, including her daughters, who stayed faithful to the church during one of the most volatile moments in English history. So here's the question this episode has been circling the whole time. What kind of women are we forming? Gloria gave Barbie one option. Girls trained from childhood to believe that the system is rigged, that her emotions are evidence, and that her suffering is the center of the story. Thomas More gives us another. Women trained to endure, to rise above, and to raise up those around them with grace. One represents a culture of spectacle, therapy speak, and permanent dissatisfaction, even when dressed up as empowerment. The other represents formation, discipline, and freedom grounded in the truth. Here's the hard part. It means swimming against the tide.
Yeah.
It means limiting social media when everyone else is handing out smartphones. It means pushing competence over comfort. It means offering your daughters counter narratives, not because the world is fair, but because they can face it. Every generation catechizes its children, whether it admits it or not. And right now, too many voices are still catechizing girls into fragility, grievance, and despair, even when many of the purported goals of the feminist movement have on paper been achieved. We can choose differently with personal, intentional formation.
Western women are so
free. A formation that demands more from a girl's teachers, parents, and from the girl herself. And if we can do that, then the saddest generation doesn't have to stay that way.
That is so true. This was amazing. And I really love like the class music at the end and how motivational it sounds. And you know, this we can do it and the women empowerment. And I completely understand it. It can be really negative if it comes to the feminism aspect of it. But in a way, what she explained here, it's completely true. Like, yes, women can do it and they can do it all, but they need to. We as millennials, by the way, we had it easy. We didn't grow up with this social media, with this stuff, and we didn't have these problems. But as a teenage girl, I remember when I moved to a different country and I was faced a different cultural barrier where a lot of women my age as well were also like drinking alcohol or going out and partying and getting the attention of the boys. I was raised differently and I would not drink alcohol. For me, boys were not a thing. So I felt really alone, or I felt like people didn't want to hang out with me because I sounded or seemed boring. But then what my parents did is they put me in a theater school, they went me to sports, dancing, this and that, and there I found my people. You know, and it's all about finding ways and going out there and finding what works for you, what makes you feel and sound like you are accomplishing things, like it makes you feel better about your existence. So yeah, you just need to find your people. I guess that's it. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. It's such a topic where I would like to maybe indulge even more and educate myself even more about, because I still feel like there is not a defined barrier between feminism, women empowerment, girl empowerment, and all of this victimization hood and deliberate women having all these mental crises on social medias. So yeah, let's talk more about it. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye. Oh, make sure to like the video if you want to see more and like support my channel. I would appreciate it. See you. Bye.